The counter-terrorism unit are making an unprecedented appeal to Muslim women in the hope they will inform police if their relatives are travelling to Syria to fight in the civil war. Estimates put the number of British Muslims who have gone to Syria since 2011 at around 400, with 20 deaths. Estimates also suggest that 40 people left Britain for Syria between January and March this year, 15 more than the whole of last year. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Helen Ball said that the latest appeal to Muslim communities for information was not about criminalising individuals, but to prevent further deaths. Critics, however, have said there exists no evidence that women would know if their male relatives were planning to travel to Syria, and have questioned if they would be willing to divulge information to the police, even if they did. Musrat Zia is from the Muslim Women's Network. She told me she expects to see a mixed response from Muslim communities in Britain.
There is a need for something to be done. There are young people, young British Muslims who are going overseas and putting their lives at risk. So there is a need to do something. As a mother, I think you would do whatever you needed to do in order to protect your child. And if that means that you've got to seek help from the police, then I think, personally, yes, I would do that. I think a lot of people would not agree with what I've just said because they would consider it to be another form of spying on your family, so to speak. I know that many Muslim leaders wouldn't agree, and they have their own reasons for that, but I think we've got to acknowledge that it is happening and something needs to be done.
Keith Vaz, the chairman of the Home Affairs Committee, has said the latest strategy could struggle, saying there is no evidence that families know the intentions of would-be jihadi fighters. Last week it emerged that 18-year-old Abdullah Daghays from Brighton had been killed in Syria after leaving home without telling his parents. The 18-year-old left England for Syria alongside his 16-year-old brother, following in the footsteps of an older sibling who had left for Syria in October. Musrat Zia believes young Muslims like these are leaving Britain because they feel increasingly disillusioned.
We have disenfranchised young people, disengaged, who don't have a complete identity. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for something that they can resonate with. They're looking for something that they can belong to. And sadly, they're not finding that here. And that, I think, is a reflection on society. It's also a reflection of weak leadership that we have within possibly the Muslim community, because enough isn't being done to address the needs of young people.
Critics suggest that the ongoing campaign by the counter-terrorism unit reveals a witch hunt against Muslims in Britain, and that police are exploiting current fears about the Islamic community. Counter-terrorism officials have repeatedly warned that those fighting in Syria could return to Britain to carry out violent acts on British soil. Fahad Ansari is a solicitor and caseworker for the civil liberties group Cage. I asked him what he made of this claim.
This narrative about blowback has no evidential basis whatsoever. Just a few years ago, with the encouragement of the authorities in this country, hundreds of British Muslims went to fight in Libya to topple Gaddafi, and they fought there alongside people of the same ideology as those fighting in Syria at the moment. Now, those people, they have returned to the UK, they've gone back to their jobs, back to their school runs, and back to normal life. If there was such a risk of blowback, presumably some of those individuals would be contacted or would be arrested or investigated, and that hasn't happened, and there's been no threat.
The International Centre for the Study of Radicalisation and Political Violence tracked 4 teenage girls from Britain believed to be married to Syrian fighters, and in January 2 17-year-olds were arrested at Heathrow, believed to be travelling to Syria after police were alerted by their family members. Despite the reported rise in the number of people believed to be travelling to Syria, Fahad Ansari says the numbers are misleading.
There's two things to bear in mind. Firstly, the proportionality of such a campaign. There's over 3 million Muslims living in Britain. Of that 3 million, approximately 400 are reportedly fighting in Syria. That's less than 0.001% of the British Muslim population. Now, for this government to roll out new legislation, new policy measures on a regular, almost monthly basis to deal with such a small number of people who have made it clear that they don't intend to come back to the UK is disproportionate.
Police counter-terrorism units held a series of events across the country yesterday, and the Home Affairs Committee is due to release a report into counter-terrorism in 2 weeks' time.